우리는 혁신에 관한 거대한 신화를 가지고 있습니다. 기업이 혁신을 만든다. 빅테크를 비롯한 수많은 다국적 기업이 현대 경제를 움직이는 거대한 판 위에서 오늘날 국가가 설 자리는 점점 줄어들고 있습니다. 누군가는 말하죠. 국가가 나서면 경제 발전을 저해한다.
We need to tell very different stories if we actually want to structure our economic system in a more functional and less dysfunctional way.
마리아나 마추카토는 현대 경제 위기 속에서 근본적인 질문을 던지는 경제학자입니다. 누가 부를 창출하는가? 누가 부를 착취하는가? 그는 가치에 대한 개념과 공공의 역할을 재정립해 자본주의가 만든 고장난 신념을 깨고자 했죠. 전 세계 정책 이반자들은 그의 목소리에 귀를 기울였습니다. 자본주의 세상에서 국가의 혁신과 공공의 가치를 찾는 새로운 경제학자 마리아나 마추카토입니다.
Welcome to EBS, We Day Hand Swap, Great Minds. I'm Mariana Mazzucato. I'm a professor at University College London, where I direct the Institute for Innovation and Public Purpose. So when someone says the word entrepreneur or entrepreneurship, what do we think about? We think about risk-taking, we think about innovation, we think about Silicon Valley, we think about venture capital. We definitely don't think about the state. We don't think about civil servants. We don't think about the public sector. Why is that? I think there's a myth, a very big myth about innovation, about where it comes from, who's the entrepreneur. But the problem is that we have had this very siloed way of thinking about it, which has also justified the way that the returns to innovation have been distributed. So let's just think about how we talk about the role of the state in economics, and I'm an economist, so I care about that. We think about the role of the state and the public sector, so all the different types of public institutions, as fixing market failures. So there's this idea that the market, the economy, is organized through the market system, and the market is out there. It's the best way to actually organize our capitalist economic system, and sometimes it messes up. Sometimes it fails. So this might happen because there's positive externalities. So there are goods that need to be created, which aren't created. So think of basic research and development. The idea is that the state comes in and funds basic research and development because the private sector doesn't fund it. Why doesn't it fund it? Because again, the spillovers are so wide, it can't actually profit from it and appropriate the returns just for it. So we all accept that we have science-based institutions where the state funds things like basic research and development. No controversy there. Or we think that the state might be needed to do the opposite, negative externalities. So when you have private sector companies that are producing too much of something that's considered bad, like pollution, then the state has to come in and introduce perhaps a tax, like a carbon tax, to fix that. Or you might have another type of problem of asymmetric information, where, say, big banks don't have enough information on small companies, so they don't provide lending to them. So you need the state to come in and provide funding to small, medium enterprises. Now, what all this ignores is that actually in the history of capitalism, which of course differs from feudalism because we've had lots of technological change, whereas feudalism was basically 500 years of inertia, technological change, and some of the most radical technological change, which has indeed fueled growth under capitalist systems, has required a state that has done much more than just fixed up the different problems that might arise because of market failures. In fact, if we think about the history of the internet revolution, the biotech revolution, the nanotech revolution, and what is slowly becoming the green tech revolution, the state has actually often been the entrepreneur. It's provided the high-risk, early-stage financing in the early stage of the innovation chain, but also all sorts of different types of investments throughout the innovation chain. If we don't have a way to recognize what in the end is this collective way to create value between public and private, then we have a problem. And so this myth that we often hear about, that, we have creativity and dynamism and value creation in the private sector, and the public sector is there to, at best, redistribute that value or fix different types of market failures along the way, has actually then created a narrative that value is created in the private sector. It is then at best facilitated, enabled, or fixed along the way by the public sector. And this is the problem, that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, that if we at best talk about the state as redistributing and fixing market failures, we end up actually organizing state structures in a pretty boring way. In a way that is often also top-down, that doesn't create the kind of dynamic capabilities we require within state institutions to think out of the box and to be creative. So first of all, what am I actually talking about? I just mentioned that the state has been a value co-creator, has been a risk-taker, has been an investor of first resort, not just a lender of last resort. So, and indeed what makes the iPhone, for example, smart, is what's in it. The internet, GPS, touchscreen display, the Siri voice-activated system. All of that was funded by the state. So it was DARPA, an innovation agency within the US Department of Defense, that came up with the internet. It was the US Navy that came up with GPS. And you could go on, across all those different technologies. Furthermore, these organizations, like DARPA, were not actually thinking about the internet. What DARPA had was a problem. It needed to get the satellites to communicate. The internet was a solution to that. There was also other potential solutions. So a lot of these kind of technological changes come about as solutions to problems in purpose-oriented public institutions. The Navy as well, they didn't say, we need GPS. They, had a very specific task of knowing where all the, ships were in the ocean. GPS became a solution for that. And all of these different investments are about risk-taking. For every internet, there's many failures that we don't know, right? So just like any venture capitalist will tell you that for every success, there's many failures that they have to absorb. Well, it's the same thing with state investments. Another point that's very important is that these types of investments, these public investments that got us all these smart things in our iPhones, weren't just about basic research and development, fixing some sort of market failure around public goods and positive externalities. Actually, what was required were investments across the entire innovation chain.